I needed a methodology to study this actually immensely complex set of interactions between a choreographer and 10 or 11 dancers. I could see that from a perspective of cognitive science, there were new things here, and this area, this domain, was just dripping with phenomena of cognitive interest. The best method was to use a large number of video cameras to capture all the interactions from many different angles. I interviewed Wayne repeatedly. The students interviewed the dancers. It was an elaborate ethnographic study, but as is done today, when you can benefit by video that you can slow down and look over at the millisecond level.
At the very beginning, you know, we had all of these cameras watching process, and it did feel quite strange because it felt like it was looking into this process under the microscope, and it felt very artificial. As we've moved forward, we've done it so often now, I've felt like I've been in there, that you can absolutely ignore the cameras. And I think some of the insights have been really valuable and worthwhile, and that in a way certainly makes the sense of invasion in the process completely disappear. It's not felt like an invasive process because, again, you're getting kind of richness in terms of the things that you're learning.
The software we use allows an investigator to build tracks in which they say, oh, here I see them riffing. I see Wayne riffing here. Oh, I see the dancers are marking here. And we defined a set of phenomena, those phenomena that were so interesting. We now began to identify the intervals in which the phenomena were appearing.
We talk so much about how it is that you create choreography, and you do that from a framework perhaps that you've learned when you've been at university or college or through your dance training with those terms of reference. And what's been fascinating about working with David Kirsch is that he's helped us find a different set of references or terms of reference that we can also use in terms of what's important when you make choreography.
Riffing is a form of embodied cognition. The choreographer needs to appropriate the movement with his own body to see the possibilities inherent in that form. Wayne is always watching, and when he sees one of his dancers do something that he regards to be interesting, he appropriates that movement by performing it himself. He sketches as quickly as he can, usually getting it about 50% right. He now has reduced the faithfulness to the movement he saw them perform. He sticks some stuff at the beginning. He usually sticks some stuff at the end, and sometimes he puts something in the middle. He now will reduce it to a product he might be more satisfied with of about 14 or 12 seconds.
Marking is, for me, doing a phrase not fall out, meaning if it's a jump, I might just pretend I jump. I might use my arms. I might just walk through space to see where I have to end after a jump or a turn to understand the organization of my body in the space.
Marking is another form of embodied cognition. And we found there are many different kinds of marking. There's marking for themselves, where they might do it little or medium size or large. And this is very different than when they mark for the choreographer or the associate director, who insists on seeing the movements to full extent, but with less energy. The reason it's a kind of embodied cognition is because when a dancer explores these aspects, again, it's a very physical exploration. They are feeling the extent. They are exploring where it is, the boundaries of that, but it's not exactly physical. They're exploring physically the conception of the movement. That's why it's cognition and not just motor practice.
I think with marking, one allows oneself the space to actually think about transitions, about how to get to a certain point, which you don't allow yourself if you do it full out right in the beginning, because you don't quite understand it yet exactly.
Why is it thinking? Because it's a form of sketching with the body, the way an architect sketches on paper and uses one medium. The body itself provides a kinesthetic medium. It's fundamental to sense the possibilities of the movement or the aspects of study, what makes this quality. Those are ways in which you study both by doing it, but also inside you understand its possibilities as you're doing it. They're forms of thinking. Sonification is another class of phenomena we gave a name to. Virtually all choreographers do it. It's when they use a sound to help shape a movement. Da-de-da. Oh. Different than 1, 2, 3, because now the shape, the da-de-da, is meant to alter the shape of the movement. What's interesting is that the same sound could have a different effect on different occasions. It's an example of contextual information, situated cognition.
So all of a sudden now we understand that something like sonification, how you make noises with your mouth, I do that quite a lot when I'm shaping action, is actually something that one can share and teach and work with. And so it comes imbued with dynamic and energy and force, and it's a descriptor in a way of what's happening in this communication. And that's very content rich in terms of allowing other choreographers to also use that as something that helps them make choreography rather than just thinking of a structural thing.
We distinguished 3 types of phenomena that were characteristic of the way Wayne worked with his dancers. He would create content himself by showing the dancers, in which case he displayed the movement he wants. He would make on the dancers, now this would be solo, duets, trios, or quartets, where he would work very closely with them and shape or direct, tell them, show a little bit, but alter what they were doing. And while he was working with these duos or trios, all the other dancers behind would be copying it as quickly as they possibly could, sketching the very same phrases that the dancers, the target dancers, were doing. And the third kind of way he produced content, in this case, was much more in a collaborative, distributed manner, where the dancers themselves would create movement ideas because he gave them a task, a choreographic problem to solve, which the dancers would come together. He might give them a piece of media to look at, a picture or a little story, or have them talk about something, and these they called tasks. Each dancer has their own problem they're trying to solve, and Wayne is a factor in mixing up and extracting from the candidate ideas elements that he chooses to feed back to them. So there's a feedback loop between what the dancers are generating, what Wayne likes, what he elaborates on, what he gives back to them, how they come together in 2s and 3s to work on that. This passing movements through different bodies, because each body has its own signature, results in an increase in the amount of possible movement ideas.
And I think the experiments that we've done with David around distributed cognition, the ways in which things are communicated between people, how ideas are propagated and evolved around the group, have helped us reframe what it is to be a choreographer. They've helped us reframe what are some of the essential skills that you need to be able to inspire people to be creative. How is it that you inspire them more richly to invent?
Throughout the creative process with Wayne, there is a huge memory bank responsibility on the dancers. He generates masses of material and asks us to generate masses of material. And we kind of somehow individually and collectively have responsibility for maintaining and keeping that, so that when he comes to revisit it, he's offloaded it onto us and we have the collective responsibility of knowing what we're doing.
And in that collective, they cue off of each other. One person does this quite clearly, another person sees it, they might be a half a second behind, then they catch up. Another person says something. In another case, the grips of one person help remind the other exactly what the gripping should be. They feel a certain force that directs them. Together, they are jointly remembering. That process of jointly remembering is distributed memory. The memory isn't located uniquely in one head, but rather emerges from the interaction of the collective.
The whole idea, in a way, of our research and how that affects the whole choreographic process is what the success of our work is. It really is a laboratory from that point of view, and I think for as long as I'm in that laboratory, I should have some interesting things to say.